Hi guys, it's Bear.
And Blackie.
Welcome to Old Wayz number 59.
59.
59. Before we get into the meat of the situation, for a long time, for several weeks now, months, we've been talking about the importance of not getting too hot in your summer. Well, this morning, matter of fact, in about 15 minutes, there's going to be a funeral here in Elba for a young man who was 36 years old, who was my former brother-in-law. And today's Wednesday. On Monday, he was out in his yard working.
In heat index around 109, 110,
Yeah, around
80 or
110.
85% humidity.
Yeah, 36 years old in good health, okay? He got overheated. When he went inside into the cool house, he passed out. He hit his head and he bled to death. He had a bleeder on his brain and bled to death. We cannot stress how important it is for you to know the signs, to pay attention to what your body's telling you. And if it's the heat of the day, for heaven's sake, don't go outside. You know, go early in the morning, go late in the evening, but not in the middle of the day. And now this young man has paid the ultimate price for it.
More than likely, the best they've been able to figure out was he'd been out, he'd way overheated, he probably had heat exhaustion. He probably did not have stroke yet, but he probably had heat exhaustion. He walked into the air-conditioned house, the temperature change was radical, and he blacked out, you know, because of that sudden change. The body can't take it, and the body is, like I said, trying to push that core heat out, and suddenly it feels the cool on the outside of the skin, so it wants to suck all the blood away from the core and shove it to the extremities to try to cool it off. And he simply passed out, and he head first into a sharp corner. What would have been probably a minor head wound any other time, but because his heart is pumping like crazy, trying to cool, and he's unconscious, he bled out. You know, it does not take long to bleed out with a high heart rate. So it's a tragedy. I'm sorry for the young man and for his family. But that's how easy it can get you. Something you wouldn't think was going to be that bad can be that bad like that.
A month or so ago, he's out doing it, and unintentionally. Okay, he's just riding in a vehicle and got overheated. And, you know, what would the world be without the great hat of knowledge?
I was in that heat one way or another for 10 hours.
Yeah.
And although I was drinking, my core temperature, because it was over 100 with heat index, your body is absorbing heat no matter what, and drinking will not automatically negate it. It isn't a magic serum. My core temperature, and being older with a heart condition, my body simply couldn't cool well enough. But by the time I realized we're on the way home, it's after dark, and I realized,
Yeah.
you know, and we done stopped, got another cold Gatorade, I drank it, and I am not cooling down. Of course, the obvious thought is, why don't you just get in a cold shower? Just like that young man walked into that heat, that cold air.
That shock would have killed me.
That shock could have killed me. I could have had sudden heart stoppage because you go into shock for just a second, because, like I said, the body shoves all the blood out of the extremity. In reverse of it, to point it out to you, not most, but there's a large percentage of people that are found frozen to death are naked. It's because they're cold, they're so cold, and the body kind of gives up and suddenly dumps the blood back to the extremities. It's been holding it to the core.
Trying to keep the core warm.
And so everything out here is basically frozen almost, because it's had no real heavy circulation in probably hours. And then it dumps it, and the individual is out of their head, and they think they're burning up, and they go to peeling off clothes, and they're in the last moments before the heart's just going to stop. but the body's trying to force that blood out to try to warm the body. It's giving up on trying to keep the core, force it out of the body. Well, the same thing in heat. If you have that sudden temperature change of going from overheated to suddenly really, really cool, and I bet he was chugging cool water or something. My sister Michelle was at work. She got too hot doing what she was doing. She walked in there and there was these ice cold drinks that had been sitting on ice, and she popped one and took a big chug and passed out. And she said it felt like somebody just grabbed her chest and everything went black. Because that sudden cold, the body went, oh, we're cold, and shifted everything. So.
He was talking about your body core temperature. If you'll remember your biology, it's already at 98.6. It's right there at 100. And suddenly, if you're getting all this 100-degree plus heat absorbed into it, how can it shed it?
Yeah.
You can't shed something that is equal. That's reached, was it homeostasis?
Yeah.
I believe that's the name of it. But I mean, there's nothing to shift. There's no room to shift.
And so little by little, your core temperature starts going up till you're basically running a fever temperature.
Yeah.
Like 101, 102.
And you know, 107 is fatal.
Yeah.
But with continuing what he was talking about, guys, if y'all been hunting in cold weather, or if you've been camping in cold weather, you know that heat feeling that we're talking about, because we have all experienced it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the fingertips get too cold, and then suddenly it's like they're on fire. You go home and start to take all that mess off, all that insulation off, and suddenly you're hurting.
Walking in the house is like an oven.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. But to bring it back around to the first part, we cannot stress to you how important hot weather management is. If you're going to go out, if you insist on going out during the heat of the day, build your core up. Drink, get cold, drink cool stuff, get your body hydrated, and then go out and handle it, because you're going to start sweating profusely.
Yeah. If you will carry a thermos of ice water, and water's the best thing, throw a Gatorade in every couple hours, but don't drink exclusively Gatorade because there's too much potassium and that can increase your heart rate. That can cause other troubles. So you want to have water. If you can have cold water, that's great, because that helps cool your core. And if you keep drinking, where it's not I've been 3 hours overheating and suddenly I throw ice water, but if I'm every few minutes taking a swig, I can help keep my core artificially a little bit cool that way, and you can endure it a lot longer. They did remember wicking for years, they talked about wicking shirts.
Yes.
You know, we need wicking t-shirts and stuff. And the Olympic Committee had a scientific, environmental scientific group do a study to see if it gave you an unfair advantage in performance. And so they took athletes and put them on a treadmill or a bicycle inside of a lab where they could control the environment around it so they could make it hot and humid or whatever. And
for those of you that don't know, wicking means it takes the water off the surface of your skin and puts it into the air.
Yeah, it pulls it off the skin, puts it into the material, and it dries very fast out of the material, so it would have a cooling effect. So they put these Olympic class athletes that were not there to compete in the Olympics, you know, it's like off season.
Or retired Olympians.
Right, and they get them out there and get them on all this stuff to run, to do whatever, to work out. The Army tested it as well, guys walking on these big 8-foot wide, 10-foot long treadmills, carrying full packs under heat and etc. And what they found was it was actually a detriment because you dehydrated so fast. The skin wants that layer of water on the skin. And if it goes away for whatever reason, the body sucks more water out to put it back on the skin. And so it actually performed worse. And so they had to report back to the Olympic Committee. It was no tactical advantage. In fact, it was a detriment because it was dehydrating, and if you had anything that was over time, like bicycle or long range running, like a marathon or whatever, it was actually a detriment because the subject, unless they had continuous supplies of water, would dehydrate and perform less. So it's one of the things we don't think about because most of us are not in those environments. And you have to be acclimatized to it, used to the heat. When I was a much younger man, I worked in a foundry for a while where it was 125, 130 in that building. We were working 12-hour shifts. And like I said, I would drink 10 full-size Gatorades per night and never pee one. You just sweated it. But I acclimated to that. Now at my age now, it'd kill me. And the vast majority of people couldn't work there because they would pass out, the heat would get them or whatever. But it was a very small part of the population that they could get to work there that could adapt to that heat. Same thing with the cold. Everybody remembers the Bear Grylls when he was doing the Arctic thing, and he had the two British instructors that teach Arctic school, and they all got in that swimming pool, and the temperature of that water in that swimming pool was like 28 degrees. And within just moments, Bear Grylls is sitting there. He was in great physical shape. I mean, he's been military and all. And he's sitting there just shaking and chattering so bad he can't even talk. And the two other guys sitting there, they're instructors. They've been in this for years, you know. They're sitting there like they're at the beach or something because their bodies have adapted. Those monks in Tibet, that they dried their sheets with their body heat. They have open air temples. They're just open. They're in the Himalayas. And they take their sheets every day at the end of their meal and they wash their sheets and they wring them out and they wrap them around their bodies and let their body heat dry their sheets.
Which, if you think about it, the ambient air temperature is probably in the middle 50s and their body temperature is in the high 90s.
It dries it.
Dries it
but
fairly quickly.
They go out on the coldest night of the year and lay down in the snow in a wet sheet and sleep. And that's been proven. There's been scientific expeditions up there to observe them. Their bodies have become conditioned to generate a lot more body heat than average, and they eat a very fatty diet. So they've got. But yes, the guy's walking out in 40 below, wearing nothing but a pair of swim trunks and flip-flops with a soaking wet sheet wrapped around, which freezes like that. And he goes out and just lays down in the snow and goes to sleep, and he'll thaw, he will dry the sheet and sink in the snow from his body heat, you know. And they've documented it. The National Geographic went out and did an entire episode on these guys. So the human body can adapt, but it's got to be given time to adapt.
That's the same reason why when people move to the mountains from the low country, nowadays they tend to suffer altitude sickness. But back in the day when they were coming across the prairie on a wagon drawn by oxen, by the time they had gone up to that altitude, they had acclimated.
Yeah, because it was so slow and
because it was a slow move.
And you know, I grew up in a house without any kind of air conditioning, and so 110 whatever, it was just another day. You just had windows open.
Right.
That was it. And
box fans.
Box fans. That was it. The most precious thing I had in my room when I was 16 years old was a 28-inch old metal box fan that was screwed into the window frame, and you open the window behind it and turn that thing on, and I would lay on my bed where my head was about me to you from that fan, and that's how I'd sleep, you know. But
guilty.
you could tolerate the heat so much better. A, you were younger, and B, you were acclimated to it. As every day it got a little warmer, you got used to it. Same way we got used to the cold. Because every day it got a little cooler, and you got used to the cold because we were out there doing it.
Now, as adults, we both have discussed it. We can't sleep without a fan running.
Yeah, I need a fan running. Well, I mean, I thought I was such a wimp. And I said this in videos of my thing, that when I was a teenager and we went over here at Elba to Dead River, Harper's Bottom, which we call it Dead River, and me and three of my friends camped out, and it was February, and I thought I was such a wimp, and I was wearing cotton socks, Army jungle boots, blue jeans, a t-shirt, and an U.S. Army field jacket, M65 field jacket without a liner in it. And it was 14 degrees that night. And I thought I was such a wimp because I was cold.
Oh, the folly of youth.
Yeah, well, my buddies didn't seem to be cold. It was only years later I found out that David was wearing 3 pairs of long underwear. I didn't even own long underwear. David was wearing 3 pairs of long underwear, and then he had a big old sweatshirt on, and then he had a jacket on. Mark and Arthur had the same type layers. I wasn't, and I would just beat myself up because I couldn't be tough like them and not, you know, be cold.
That was probably the last time he went to the woods unprepared, too.
No, it wasn't, but I learned. I learned slow, but I do learn. And now I look back going, you dang idiot.
Well, I mean, you can't chastise yourself for what you didn't know.
Yeah. And you know, my good friend Dan Lutz, how he would, me and him would banter back and forth. And I'd go up and I'd spend a week with him up there. And I went up in the winter and we spent a week talking and working on projects and doing videos together. And Dan and I went out and did something for a couple of hours. And I think it was like 8 or 9 degrees. It was going to be like...
With the wind.
Yeah, with the wind. It was going to be like 2 below zero that night. And I'm wearing my field jacket, and I had 1 pair of long handles on. Of course, Dan's acting like it's just another day in the park. You know, he's got a vest on. He's not wearing a big jacket.
Yeah.
And so here I'm thinking that, you know, well, you know, he's acclimated to it. I'm not. And so, yeah, I said, go ahead and laugh at the little southern butterball. That's fine, because I was wearing layers. Well, like 3 days into it, I found out that he said, you know, well, next time you go down there to the surplus place, I want you to pick me up some long underwear. And I said, oh, you finally going to start wearing? He said, what do you mean? He did last. I'm wearing 3 layers right now. Now, you're what? He said, yeah, I wear like 2 or 3 layers during the winter all the time. Here I was thinking I was being a wimp up against him. And like, I'm wearing 1 layer and he's got on 3 to mine. No wonder. So I said, I'll be right back. I went and dug that extra pair out. I didn't feel like such a whip then. Put my extra pair on. Came out, hey, I can work around this 4 degrees now pretty good, you know.
Yeah.
But the funny thing was, because of COVID, we had to cancel my gathering in the spring, and everybody was begging me. Everything was opening back up. Can we please have something in the fall? And so I said, okay, we'll do a thing in the fall. And so we did it in, I think, first week of October. And Dan came down here, and it had cooled off. It was only 92 with 60 or 70% humidity. We thought it was like fall.
It's fall.
It's fall. It felt, and they're sitting there with sweat just falling on them. Oh my God. Oh my God. You know, he's about to pass out. And I'm going, dude, it was 20 degrees hotter last week.
How do you do it? How do you do it?
Oh man, this is beautiful. It's cooled off today. You call this cool?
Well, I was thinking the same thing about today. All right, today the temperature's in the upper 80s.
Yeah.
Humidity's around 90, 94%, but there's a breeze blowing.
Yeah.
You can't see it, but there's a breeze coming across the place here where we're talking.
And even though we're sitting here not doing nothing, I'm sweating.
Yeah, I'm, as they would say, glistening.
Yeah, glistening.
We're glistening.
And it's just because you got to be so very much aware of your environment, especially for us old silver wolves.
Yeah.
We do not regulate our body heat like we did when we were young. We are more susceptible to overheating than we were. So you just, you know, don't worry about the cold. Our joints go to hurting so bad in the cold, we don't get out there then.
Yeah.
But the heat is something we have to really keep an eye on.
But I mean, I'm just sitting here looking at my arm. I have a light perspiration layer.
Oh yeah, me too.
And that's what's helping cool us.
Yeah.
With that wind coming across, which leads us back to acclimation. And being safe out in the heat or in the cold, but we'll talk about that one at another time.
Yeah.
There was something else you wanted to bring up.
Bear and I have been telling you for the last going on 2 years now that what we were seeing was going to be some hard times. And we don't wish hard times on anybody, don't get us wrong. But we just wanted to warn you to be prepared. Well, what we're seeing right now of grocery prices being unbelievable.
Almost 50% more expensive.
Yeah, I mean, everything, insurances have gone up left to right. My insurance was $458 a year and it's gone to $768. I hadn't changed a thing, but their end did so. We're seeing a lot of shortages in grocery stores and stuff like that where they simply don't have something you've been buying for years. I don't know whether that's a shipping problem, a company that was making it having a problem, and now, 2 days ago on Monday, you saw the stock market take a huge dump.
1,000 points.
A lot of people who were counting on that 401k money, you just took a huge hit.
What was there on Friday afternoon when you left the office? It wasn't there Monday morning.
It wasn't there Monday morning, it was gone like that.
Gone.
In the world today of these electronics running all the stock market type stuff, and this is something Bear and I had talked about a little while ago, in the old days, if I went and invested in company X, and they said they were going to make this much profit, and I invested in them, and then 6 months out, somebody at the company figured out we ain't going to quite make it. We tried, but we're not going to quite make it. Well, somebody in accounting will go tell the guy in the office, and they'll say, well, we'll do what we can to shift assets around and make it happen. And then quietly he'll move his stock, and then his buddies move their stock, and then somebody in the industry will get a little whip because somebody in the office called their mom and told
Or their congressman.
Or their congressman and said, you might want to move your stock because we're about to take a hit. And by the time you and I heard anything about it on the TV, sitting there eating our lunch, go, wait a minute, I've got money to invest in that company. And then you get a hold of your stockbroker and get time for him to actually shift and sell your stock. From that uh-oh moment until it's all over is like 6 months. Today it's over in nanoseconds. When Bitcoin, that everybody wants to get into, Bitcoin lost billions of dollars in nanoseconds because it's a big game to me of hot potato. We agree that this, let's say this is a Bitcoin, it has no real value, but we agree, you and I, that that's worth $100. And so I put $100 in it. And then through trading, manipulation, the price goes up, the price goes down a little bit, the price goes up. After a while, at some magic point, it's kind of like the old musical chairs, everybody going around and around, it keeps going up, keeps going up, keeps going up, and it gets to be $10,000. And I go, and I go, sell, and I dump out. And he goes, what? And he goes to sell it. And it becomes a race, kind of like everybody jumping for a chair, trying to see if they can sell and get whatever out of it. The problem with it is the rich and powerful, they've got those computers that'll do it in nanoseconds. By the time you and I hear of it, it's done over. So
once your stock hits, or well, in this case your Bitcoin or your stock hits a certain level, it automatically will sell.
Yeah.
You don't even have to place an order.
It's in the middle of the night, and you say, okay, they're up to $10,000, and it's going up. If it drops down to 9,500, sell everything I got. And during the night, something on the other side of the planet happens, and suddenly they drop, and they hit that, and it automatically sells, and you get up the next morning, it tells you, we sold all your Bitcoin, here's your money.
Even if it's $9,499.99.
It'll automatically sell, and it's over in a flash. It's over in speed of light.
Yeah. To add insult to injury, continuing this train of thought, I saw something. I read something, watched a video or something. I don't remember what it was. Wells Fargo, with whom I am not affiliated, and I do not have an account in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I don't want an account with them. Is going to digital currency.
That means they're going to convert your money in their bank to digital currency,
right?
Like that Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You didn't ask them to.
You didn't ask them to. You You will not be able to go into Wells Fargo Bank and cash your check or deposit your paycheck and get back $100. It ain't gonna happen because they're not gonna have the cash.
It's all digital.
It's all gonna be digital.
And that means, just like that Bitcoin, it can go, you didn't do anything wrong.
No.
That was the big major thing that caused the huge stock market crash back in the day was you and I didn't do anything wrong. We just gave our money to that bank and that bank lost it. Because we didn't overdraw or nothing, but suddenly the bank or their parent bank needed all the money out of the bank that was our money to pay off their debt, so they snatch all the money out of the local Wells Fargo, so to speak. Oh, but it's guaranteed up to $40,000. What if I've got $1.5 million in there? Well, it's only guaranteed to $40,000.
You're screwed.
You're screwed. You know.
Take the money and go.
And so this is scary to me. How you can work hard, put everything into something like this, and then you not do anything wrong. And suddenly everything you got's gone.
What was it? Old Wayz number 5, 4, where we talked about barter. I want to go back and review that video.
Yeah. You know, I personally, I am not a monetary advisor, okay?
No,
I am not a lawyer. I'm talking from Blackie, okay? But due to the volatile stage, nature of the way everything is right now, I pulled my money out and got it in cash. I've got enough in there to cover my stuff. When my money is deposited in, I go in, make sure all my bills are paid, and then I pull out and leave like $50 in there. Because if that bank suddenly overnight went poof, or closed up, or locked out, and I've experienced it with my bank, which is not Wells Fargo. But over the last 6 months, I have gone in to go and cash a check. I mean a money order where I've sold a haversack or something like that. Some old person that didn't have PayPal, they sent me a money order or a cashier check. Usually I just say, send me a money order. And I'm told, you can't cash that. Why can't you? Well, we can't verify it's real. It's a Wells Fargo, it's a, you know.
It's a United States Postal Service.
Yeah, it's from the post office. No, we can't verify it's real. We can't, you gotta go somewhere else. My bank won't take a U.S. Post Office money order. Let that sink in. Their higher ups are telling them, don't trust a U.S. Postal Service money order. So I've also had it from other, like Western Union and a couple other things. And I've had to go through a lot of hoops in order to cash them things. So I've come in several times, they've told me we can't do any withdrawals because our computer system's down, but we can take a deposit.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Makes you wonder. And when you go into Walmart and they said there are no coins, you got to use card only. That's the reason I have got my barter stuff set up. I've got my stuff set, and then I've got my cash in a safe location, not some place you could break in and find it. And if the house burns, I still got my money. Remember when the old people used to put them in mason jars and bury them in the yard? Yeah.
Remember, we were raised by Victorians.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember being sent out into the chicken yard with a shovel one time and told to dig up it because a family member had a stroke. And I'd been sent out into the chicken yard and told where to dig and brought up Sanka jars that had money in them.
Mm-hmm.
That they had put the money in it and then sealed up the jar and put it so the lid was on the bottom. To make sure the water wouldn't seep in and it wouldn't flood out. Yeah. I remember having to dig them because they'd had a stroke and needed money to pay the doctor bill. Go out there and dig them jars up. So yeah.
And you'll find jars of like, caches of like 2 jars or 3 jars. Here, you go over there, there's 5. Over here, there's 2.
It ain't in
Back
one
there,
place.
there's 1. No.
Like a squirrel swirling it away.
And to tell you how cautious I am, I don't pin anything on GPS. Not a thing in the world.
No.
Because this can be hacked.
Yep, somebody can find something. I'm not
They
saying
really
it's-
want to find, if the world goes sideways, this goes in the river.
we're not saying that's what's gonna happen.
No,
that
not at all.
World War III starting and everything's going sideways and you better have, we told you for the last 2 years, have food put up so you can weather a hard time. Have some cash on hand so you can weather.
Right.
If any kind of thing is going on, be sure your car tank is full, you know,
Or if you have multiple cars, make sure everything is full.
so that you can, you do have to leave for whatever reason.
If you have gas cans, fill them up, put a little stay bill inside them,
Yeah,
and let them go.
just be prepared, that's all we can tell you. Because you never know what's gonna happen.
We don't know, we're not harbingers of doom.
No.
As we keep saying, we're not saying that something A, B, and C will specifically happen. We're saying that the world can go sideways in a heartbeat.
From something that happened on the far side of the planet while you're asleep.
We've seen some of that in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, like I said, Monday, people that went to bed on Saturday, not realizing when they got up Monday morning, a big hunk of their 401k is just simply gone.
Think about it. Between, all right, the New York Stock Exchange is sort of the gold standard for the world. All right, you've got between the next stock exchange over is going to be the Nikkei in Japan. I think I pronounced that right.
Yeah.
After that, you're going to have about 10 other ones until you get to, you know, England and their stock exchange. There's probably 10 or 11 stock markets between there. And what happened, as I understand it, and I may be mistaken, as I understand it, everyone opened down. And you didn't have a 1-point drop or say 100-point drop. As you went along, you had 10 or 1,200-point drops.
They compound off
Yeah.
each other.
And when the sunlight gets back around to New York, to the New York Stock Exchange, that's 1,000 accumulated points.
That they opened up down because everybody's taking their money. Why? Taking the money out of Bitcoin.
Everybody's taking a hit.
Everybody's pulling their money out because they're not trusting the system. And if rich and powerful are not trusting the system, you shouldn't either.
Point taken.
It's one of the things, you don't have to like them, but you got to know they're not going to lose money.
And they've got somebody watching the clock 24 hours a day.
They got machines sitting there just to do that. Like I said, whenever I was a boy, I remember my granddaddy pointing out, and it was the time in the late 60s. And he said, if the guy on the TV can't shut up about it, if the guy on the radio is talking about it every 3 songs that comes is over, if the newspapers have got it all over it, and if it's on the billboards and etc., that's some rich guy trying to tell you how he wants you to think, because you and I can't afford any of that. That's somebody rich telling you how he wants you to think, because it's going to profit him. Here in the state of Alabama, quite a few years ago, we wanted to double the taxes for out-of-state companies that owned land here in the state that weren't basing here in the state. And so they wanted to lower Alabama's average state tax by charging more correctly these big, huge out-of-state conglomerates that owned huge tracts of timber, huge tracts of farmland in the state, raising theirs. Well, they just did an ad campaign and had billboards everywhere telling how they were going to double your tax. The fine print said they were doubling your tax if you own more than 30,000 acres. How many people you know own more than 30,000 acres?
About 2.
But they had it on TV every night. It was in all the newspapers. They had billboards up. The radio guy wouldn't hush up about it. And of course, we voted it down because that was some rich out-of-state guy wanted you to keep his money. That's the way it's rigged. Was anything else, brother?
I think we have sufficiently covered the ground.
Yep. Guys, be safe.
Be aware.
Be aware. protect yourself. Like we said, have some money, have some supplies. We don't know what's going to go on. We're seeing the riots in France, in England, and in other places. We know how volatile everything is, no matter which side you are on that fence. And just in case you got to move out in a hurry for some reason, be prepared.
Particularly you guys that are in metropolitan areas.
Big cities,
Yeah.
be ready.
Just be prepared. Don't panic. Okay, keep your head. Don't panic. Just be observant, be aware, and be safe. Well, I guess we're going to wrap it up here. Guys, please support Blackie's channel. Keep supporting mine. Go to hit that, hit the like, hit the bell icon. Leave us a comment. We definitely want to know your comments, because a lot of people read these comments, and you might be helping somebody on the other side of the planet that you're not aware of, who needed to hear what you've got to say. So on that note, we will close it up here, and we will see y'all down the road.
Safe journeys.